Dudes and dudettes, welcome back to the only podcast produced by three winners of IMSA's Spirit of the Race Award. You're tuned in to the Check Engine Podcast, streaming through Anchor.fm or anywhere else podcasts are streamed for that matter. My name is Nick. With me, as always, my two co-hosts, Andrew and Tristan. I'm going to start with Tristan today. What's up, man? Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you. Happy, second or first and a half day it tried to be spring. And that trying is the critical word there. It's terrible.
I was so excited. A couple days ago, it was touching 40. Got to finally go get my car washed so I can describe my vehicle color as like my chocolate brown and not just salt. And then
what color is your car?
Salt. And then this morning, 5 a.m., woke up, snowplows rolling through the complex. It's like, God damn it. So close.
It's trying.
Close. Andrew, what's your opinion on the weather?
Well, being a homeowner, last night was the first night that we actually had water coming into our basement.
Ooh.
But, we got the freeze and then the thaw and then the freeze and then it rained. It poured out in Waukesha.
It did.
Yesterday. So,
yeah.
I mean, hey, if that's what it takes, if historically high amounts of ice and frozen ground and then a bunch of rain is what it takes, I think we're doing okay. But got to do re-landscaping. This is also my least favorite day every single year. This is stupid daylight savings day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hate every single one of you who loves this time.
The spring. I don't think anybody likes losing an hour.
But everyone's like, but it'll be lighter whenever it's lighter. I don't know. When is it lighter now?
Who cares?
Later?
In the morning? Is it lighter in the morning? Is it lighter at night?
Who cares?
I don't care. I hate all of you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, Nick.
Thank you very much. We're not pros.
There it is.
It's Spicy March.
But you're listening anyway, and we thank you for that. But we don't want you just to listen. We want you to talk with us. We want you to come at us with stuff. Opinions. Do you like it? Do you not like it? You can start at checkenginepodcast.com. That's right. Even though we're not pros, we do have our own website. And we have an email there that you can reach us at, inbox@checkenginepodcast.com. The website also has a blog page, and it has links to our episodes, links to our socials. So it's a good little home base to get you started with us. So check it out, checkenginepodcast.com. Andrew, this episode is kind of like a continuation of what we did last week, but let's just tee it up for the listeners, will we?
Yeah, so last week, 2 weeks ago, Tristan mocked me for finding the word iconic problematic, and then I spat it in his face last week.
Did he, though?
No, but basically what I said is we need to, Check Engine Podcast, we need to determine the most iconic car of all time. And on our episode last week, we determined that the number one most important factor for a car that is an icon, it must have a story. That's what we did.
A good story, not just a story.
Right, a good story. Along with some other factors. But what we did from there is pick 16 cars that we considered the most iconic. And now we're going to bracket them. We're going to go through every matchup. It's going to be just a straight vote. And we are going to find the most iconic car of all time.
This is March Madness Survive and Advance at its finest.
Can we say that?
Yeah.
I thought that was
It was trademarked.
protected or something.
Was it?
Damn
Yeah.
it.
Oh, crap.
I have to bleep that out later.
This is boop. Survive and Advance.
Exactly.
That part is trademarked?
Yes.
Survive and Advance?
No, the other part, the MM part.
This is Spicy March Survival Mode.
No, it's not. Yes, it is.
Name of the episode. Got it.
But it's not like Super Bowl where we could literally just get demonetized for saying that.
Well, that's why you just put the B to the other word, so it's Superb Owl.
Superb Owl. I like that. I'm going to do that.
Which, be very careful that doesn't turn into Super Bowl.
There's also that.
Oh, man. Can we get into the episode now?
Guess.
Now, as you may have already heard or watched or seen or whatever, we have moved most of our pace laps to a video session on Facebook and YouTube and stuff. So we're still going to have pace laps. They're just going to be much shorter before we dig into the meat and potatoes of this episode. So, quick pace laps. Andrew, I think you had one about Vauxhall.
I do. I have a very interesting one about Opel and Vauxhall, a company that used to be under the tutelage. Do we want to say the tutelage?
The aegis.
Would you really call it that?
I wouldn't personally. No.
Giving this story, would you really call it
I would
that?
not. However,
Oppression.
Opel and Vauxhall I think they were fully bought by GM
Yes.
about 20 years ago, right?
Yep.
And GM used them to basically chassis engineer all of the cars that went to Saturn and all the cars that were Buicks, and the stuff like the Equinox started all as Opels. This year they sold them. They sold them to PSA specifically. Peugeot, for anyone who cares. However, here's the important piece. After 20 years under GM, Opel turned their first profit in the first year they were independent to the tune of $859 million. Sorry. Oh, God, I got that wrong. Million euros. $979 million.
Whoa. 1 year. One effing year.
1 year.
1 year on its, well, it's not on its own, it's under Peugeot, but
Right.
maybe Peugeot gives them a little more freedom than GM did.
Well,
We were talking about this off air. Maybe they had that kind of profit, but it was just kind of tied into GM's overall numbers. Is it an accounting thing where the dollars actually drop on the paper?
or could it be that a lot of this money, a lot of this, pure profit money came from GM cutting them loose and being like, oh, shit. What are we going to do for Buick now? We just need to buy everything from them. So that could all be GM money, or a good portion of it.
Or licensing fees or
Right,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly where the money came from, because that is crazy to turn in just 1 year.
In 1 year, it's
on your
insane.
own, technically on your own, is
Yeah.
nuts.
It's so crazy, especially after 20. You know what I mean? When you look at,
Did they say how many of those 20 were at a loss?
they didn't actually. This is just a pretty brief report, but
I know a lot of them were, at least towards the end.
I'm just thinking of, in compared to 204 million loss for the last 5 months of 17.
Jesus.
Okay, all right. So this is a huge turnaround, a massive turnaround.
That's a miracle. That is a miracle.
Yeah, I mean, it is deeply impressive, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens specifically, because all of those, not all the cars they make, but a lot of the cars they make are here as Buick, and we know Buick isn't doing well with the same cars. Mm-hmm.
Weird. In just a different market.
I mean, yeah.
So, interesting stuff.
Let's hope they can keep it up, because
Go Vauxhall, go Opel, go.
they've made some pretty cool stuff.
They have in the past. Was it Opel that made the Astra?
It
Yep.
was. Yep.
Yeah, that was a good car. Gran Turismo.
And the VXR, that little
Yes.
that little mid-engine thing.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. All right. Next, we should talk about the fact that this weekend, as we're recording this, marks 1 year since episode 1 of the Check Engine podcast was released.
1 whole year.
We actually made it. Cheers, boys. We made it a calendar
make
year,
it.
and we're actually still doing this and gaining momentum. Do we got stats for the year? Has someone pulled that up?
We don't have for the year so far. I mean, right, for our total year.
For our
Right.
for our calendar 365 year.
Tristan, do you have it up? Otherwise, I will
I
in just a
don't.
second.
Other than, you did mention
Yeah.
earlier.
So we have, right now, in a year, we've just crested 6.1 thousand total listens. 6.1
Jesus,
thousand.
crazy.
And 146 average plays per episode. So,
Yeah, and as we discussed, I think a couple episodes ago, the exponentially greatest portion of those listens came since we came back this new year.
Yep, definitely true. I mean, yeah, it's been at least 1,000
We took away
a
the
month.
supply, we increased the demand.
It's been at least 1,000 a month
Yeah, in this first year. Or this
in the second year. Yeah,
second
in 18.
in 19. Man, we were
19.
bad at this.
Oh, God.
Not pros. And yet we have
Bad at
6,000
time.
listens and 146 listens per episode in the first year.
So, hey.
That's pretty damn impressive, I would say.
I'm happy. I'm very happy with that.
We've said it before. We said it. Well, you'll hear it from us again. We started literally at zero. No financial backing. No one to bump us no one it was just us three at a kitchen table.
Yeah.
With a pink, like $15 Amazon microphone.
It was $12.
Oh.
The black one was 15. So I'd say
right.
$3. Gotta save that money.
What a long ways we've come from my kitchen table to a card table in my spare bedroom.
Hey, it's got to be like 15 feet.
Yeah, definitely.
At
We're
least.
moving.
Plus, you know, some other stuff is going to change. And yeah, I mean, we're ready for a whole new phase even, which is crazy.
Right. So, last thing before we get into this episode, it involves how we started last week. We've got a listener, Jeff, who was, he came at us because he thought that we missed an icon in our bracket. Okay. And he reached out and he told me that, you know, I don't necessarily agree. Could you explain why? And he sent back a novel explaining why. I'm not going to get into all of it, but Jeff, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate your passion for this, and we're going to bring up your suggestion and toss it around the room real quick. So, he said that no iconic list would be complete without Duesenberg. Here's why.
Okay.
Here's why. He actually, the definition of iconic is someone or something that is a representation of something else. An example of iconic is the Eiffel Tower being a symbol of Paris. Duesenberg represents engineering excellence, speed, reliability, beauty, and luxury. Have you ever heard the phrase, it's a doozy?
I've never heard of Duesenberg.
Have you heard the phrase, it's a doozy?
Yes, I have.
It came from Duesenberg.
I'd need to see sources on that, frankly.
Has a Ford, Chevy, Buick, Dodge, etc., not just an engine, but an actual vehicle, ever won the Indy 500 or a Grand Prix race? No, but a Duesenberg has. Eddie Rickenbacker, fighter pilot and racer, drove a Duesenberg to a top 10 finish in IMS. Duesenberg set a land speed record of 156 miles per hour at Daytona in 1920. First American to win the French Grand Prix at Le Mans, Jimmy Murphy in a Duesenberg. It won the Indy 500 3 times in the 20s. Let's see here. What else did he say here? It lasted for a 24-hour endurance test first time out, able to make it average out at a top speed of 135 mile an hour average in a 24-hour period. He puts together a lot of stats for us here.
Sorry, I was just double checking the claim of that doozy thing. OED, early 20th century of unknown origin.
Well,
It's the OED.
They know where all the words come from.
No, that is funny though, because the common spelling there is not D-U-Z-E-Y as in Duesenberg. It's D-O-O-Z-Y.
yeah.
Well, and the known as, you know, doozy, like the link that I found for it actually had a D-U-E-S-Y.
Yep, which is short for Duesenberg.
Yeah, that one is.
D-U-E-S-Y. Oh, see,
Yeah.
I've never even heard it like that. Anyways, that's all really cool. Now, buy me a Duesenberg.
They're out there.
I'm sure they are. Can you buy a new one?
Can you buy a new GT40? I mean, that's not really a argument.
But it is though. Because what we're talking about now is beyond the scope of one car. I mean, there isn't even
Buy me a new F40.
There isn't even a Duesenberg model number listed in any of that.
Oh yeah, I just skipped over it.
But what I'm saying is we're talking about a brand, which we can have an icon. We can have
Model
an
J, SJ. Model J seems to be the most famous one.
Never heard of it.
He's got pictures here of Duesenbergs.
That looks like a car. I don't know.
The pipes coming out the side actually look kind of badass.
Yeah. And it's, you know, trying to look more into the doozy thing. Merriam-Webster also actively completely rejects any attribution to the automobile.
Huh.
The first known use of that phrase is 1916, 4 years before the production of the first car.
Interesting.
So
I mean, you know,
it might have spread it around.
well,
but,
it could be
you
both.
know,
It could be both
you know,
and definitely.
It existed, and then the association of those two spread it. I don't know, but
Here's what I think is interesting though. When I made that list, there was one Duesenberg on there. Who knows what it was? I certainly don't remember. But I just rejected it off the rip because those cars don't mean anything to me. They don't connect with anything in my automotive experience. Similar to the Model T, however, intrinsically, I understand how the Model T shaped production going forward.
Right. That's something that, when we're talking about fan reaction, I got a relatively strong discussion about the Model T with my father.
That's what I
who was like, you have to realize it's it's this, it's that, and it's I do, but we were having a discussion about would you recognize one, and then he said, you grew up right across the street from one. Wait, that was a Model A. And which, I don't want to make fun of him on the air. I get it, but
I'm only laughing because I would do the exact
right. That's
same
what I'm
thing.
saying. I had no idea what that. I knew it was a Ford. I was watching an abandoned video on YouTube, one of my favorite pastimes, and they were walking through this old hotel, and there was a Ford sitting there, and I went, look, it's a Ford. I didn't know which one. It was a model something truck, but I don't know which one. And I think that's, the story is the only important part about the Model T.
Right.
I think when we look at Iconic, we look at the story and the impact and the recognition and stuff like that.
Well, and as modern biased as it can make certain arguments, you also have to consider longevity. Duesenberg now is a punchline. I mean, when you
I wouldn't say it's not around.
I absolutely would.
Why?
Because for the very reason that on all of those lists I look at, only one Duesenberg appeared in all 10 of them. Duesenberg was around and they did some stuff, and now they're gone. And the memory of what they did is also gone. You know what I mean?
I mean, they were fantastic engineers, the two Duesenberg brothers, I believe. They were fantastic engineers, but they were horrendous business people and marketers. And I think that's, when you talk about iconic, you can talk about important, you can talk about interesting. For some people, there may be a lot of interest there. But I think...
Well, I think there is. I didn't know anything about this.
Right, I think it falls short of iconic, though.
I'll probably read the Wikipedia article. But even when I do, and again, I could totally be off here, I don't think it'll change my opinion. It's sort of the same argument. This is the same argument you have to make about Hudson.
Yep.
And about... I'm just trying to think of another example of a name that has great clout. For example, the Hudson Hornet appeared on way more lists than any Duesenberg.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that made it into popular culture.
So popular.
Cars.
Yeah, the Cars
the
movie.
Disney Cars movie.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I really don't. The only thing I will say about it is I totally understand why, with all of that stuff that I knew nothing about, there is definitely an argument to be made for the brand Duesenberg to be an American icon. But even that isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about in all of car history, our search, my personal search and ours with this bracket, is to find the single most iconic car ever.
Right, and we're gonna cheat a little bit by narrowing it down to no more than model.
Right.
Even if it's not model year or specific vehicle.
Yeah, because we have only limited time.
Right. But I think that we could, if we're talking about brands, we could definitely include Duesenberg in that discussion.
For sure.
But I think individual lines of cars, individual models of cars, nameplates, whatever you want to call them, I don't think it falls into that conversation the same way that some of our ones that we're going to go through the bracket with do.
I'd agree. What do you think, Nick?
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think the same way. And I think it all depends on perspective, too. Like, what we think is iconic, other people don't think. Like, we're probably going to go through some, and people are going to be listening, like, what the hell are they talking about? Why is that on the list?
Yeah, or why have you left this off? Which is why we love this kind of discussion.
Yeah, if you send us comments, you will be featured. We will talk.
Yeah, we'll talk about
We don't have that many yet. Like,
no, and we
it's not like, we have to decide which ones get on and which one. Like, we'll talk about it.
And we do value them, too.
Because, for example, now I kind of want to do an iconic brands episode.
Also,
kind of a takeoff on, like, of all time, do, like, a dating episode.
Ooh, that'd be really
like we
fun.
did early in our first season.
That'd be a good throwback.
Do a new one of American brands of all time. Would you swipe right or left?
Well, and also now I learned about Duesenberg. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, I knew of them. My grandpa loved them, but that's all I knew.
That's kind of And I mean, I don't even know when they went out of business, for example, but that's how buried that history got in definitely less than 100 years.
Oh, yeah, definitely less than 100. But Jeff, thank you for reaching out and thank you for building your case. That's awesome, and thanks for listening. Looks like you've spurred an idea for a potential new episode, at least. I just don't think that the Duesenberg is going to make our list today.
Yeah, as a model.
Right.
So that's
Yeah, maybe as a brand later on.
That's
right.
the only problem I have with it is point to a specific model, and I can't.
It looks like the Type J is what he was pointing at. But,
Sure.
yeah, but I don't think it's going to make our list. Speaking of, let's bounce into our list because we've got a lot of work to do. We've got to cut it down from 16 to 1.
We can do this. Right. So basic rules for this: no abstaining. Everyone votes. You can make arguments, but once the vote is cast, the winner moves forward. The loser is burned from our memories.
Oh,
That's intense.
I should have probably changed the ones I'm looking at then. Otherwise, I won't know how to get home.
The highest possible stakes.
Tristan walks outside and goes,
Where's my car?
wait, what?
The loser will be shamed.
Do we want to list? We're gonna run down the bracket, right? We've got 4 groups of 4 to make our 16. We built most of it last week, but we'll run through it real quick. And we have to talk about the seeding, which is tough. Let's start with the industry ones, the ones that none of us picked, but these are the 4 that we chose to complete the bracket.
Yep.
Do you want to go 1 through 4 or 4 through 1?
Let's go.
Letterman style, build up.
Yep, let's do it.
All right, so at number 4, which would probably be the lowest seed in the entire 16.
Yes.
The lovable underdog, Dodge Caravan.
I mean, that's pretty perfect.
Right?
That's a perfect order.
Well, if you're talking about importance of something, like we did the Model T or like we did the Beetle, like that was the first of a huge craze for soccer moms everywhere was the
yeah.
Dodge Caravan. So Caravan is at 4.
Excuse me, that's after school recreational activity parents.
And without vans,
Leave
there are no
the room.
SUVs, remember.
Exactly.
You got to remember that.
Yeah.
Gotta make a bigger label.
So Caravan at 4 in the industry bracket. 3rd seed is the Model T.
Cool.
It's going to be in a Ford on Ford battle against the 2 seed, which this one might be a sleeper to go pretty deep. This is the F-150.
Oh man, that's power. That's a power pick.
Talk about that might be one of those trendy sleepers that people put all the way through if they were betting on this. And the number 1 industry seed is the Mustang.
Yeah.
Pretty damn iconic.
That's tough.
in American folklore
What's
anyway.
so funny about that is you hear the F-150 as a 2, and it's kind of like, why would that ever be a 2? But
Then Mustang.
Mustang. All right, so we'll pop into my bracket. Number 4, and this I actually switched right before we went on air. I switched my 3 and 4 because this is really tough. Because this is so hard because it's this one of all the cars on this list might have the best story. 4 seed is the Ford GT40.
sure.
It's the 4 seed because it was just that one car and it didn't make like a huge run. There was a 30+ year gap between when they started making it again, blah, blah, blah. But damn the story of how that thing came to be. My number 3 seed, the Ferrari F40. My number 2 seed, everybody's favorite club racer, the Mazda Miata. And at number 1, the mighty Corvette.
That's a very racy bracket.
It's a very, well, look who created the bracket.
I'm just saying.
I know.
Andrew, your bracket.
All right, so
It can't all be Hyundais.
there are no Hyundais.
I know.
Even though you are wearing the High Life shirt.
Of course, and my phone case too. All right, so in the 4, the Shelby Cobra.
That's a strong 4 seed
That's
too.
a strong 4. I had it up higher initially, but I there's just such a tempting matchup here. You'll see in the first round. So in the 3, I have the GTI.
Okay.
2, the Veyron.
See, I think that's going to be a tough sell to 2 for me because it's just the one model.
But you have to.
Anyway, we'll get into that later.
Right.
What's next?
And in the 1 seed, this was a last minute change that I made when I was going on Twitter and like,
I'm
wow,
literally
how do we-
changing one of mine right now.
Look at this.
Oh,
But,
son of a
yeah. So
bitch.
my number 1 seed is the Jaguar E-Type.
Okay. I mean, the look of the E-Type.
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's all you got to say almost.
Absolutely.
All car people know what we're talking about. So we've got E-Type 1, Veyron 2, GTI 3, Shelby Cobra 4 in Andrew's bracket.
Yep.
The Tristan bracket, the Deep Thoughts bracket.
Deep Thoughts TM bracket. TM.
Also TM.
I'm ready. Hit me with it. Number 4.
Number 4 seed, the Subaru WRX.
Okay. Don't have to write anything different there.
Yeah, it's these middle two. The 3rd seed, the Audi Quattro.
Oh.
Okay.
The number 2 seed, the Volkswagen Beetle.
Very good.
And El Numero Uno, Porsche 911.
That is about a James May bracket if I've ever heard one.
Definitely. Definitely.
There were no Fiat Pandas in there.
Oh, that's
Except
true.
he hates the Beetle.
He does hate
Yes.
the Beetle.
Allegedly.
So the
He probably
bracket is
owns
set. We've got 16 cars split up into groups of 4. Do we want to go through each group of 4 and cut it to one? Like just do my bracket and hash it all the way out, and then the industry bracket and hash it all the way
Or
out?
do we want to do it in rounds?
Or do we want to do rounds?
I vote rounds.
I think rounds.
Rounds?
Yeah.
Well, because I wrote the bracket, my bracket's on top. So
I'm
we're
in
gonna
charge.
start. We're gonna start there. First matchup: 1 seed Corvette versus 4 seed GT40.
I feel like that's easy. I feel like Corvette's easy winner here.
I agree. Despite the story of the GT40, like there are a few things that when you say like can be non-ironically followed like by American icon. And I think Corvette is one of those.
Well, also, you know what? I may have gone different with this last week, but re-listening to the episode, Nick made such a convincing argument about why only the original GT40 counts. That
I agree.
Against the history of the Corvette, it's just nothing. You can't compete with it.
Yep.
Unanimous. Corvette then. Easy round. I thought someone would have put up a better, easier fight for the GT.
Actually, re-listen to the episode.
Yeah.
Really,
So
it
I
did
like
convince me.
I like the GT40 story, but I think it cannot be as iconic as the Corvette.
Nope.
All right. So the next one down the list, still in my bracket, we have the 2 seed Miata up against the 3 seed Ferrari F40.
Man,
On the count of 3.
oh God. You know what? I'm gonna have to go Miata.
Yeah. Yep. I was
Really?
waiting. Yeah, I was waiting for the 1, 2, 3 there. But
I thought you were just forcing me to choose quickly.
no, I was going to be like,
Just being
let's
a
all say it
dick.
at the same time
Oh.
and see what happens.
I'll get you next time.
But no, I was going to go with the Miata also because I think the F40 is a fantastic poster car, and I think it did some amazing things. But I think from the standpoint of who's had the impact.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's why I moved the Ferrari up from the 4 to the 3 is because of the narrative around the car. Yes, it was a single model, but first 1 to 200 miles an hour. It ushered in that whole you can do 200 miles an hour and not be on a race. Well, I mean, you would still have to, but
Yeah.
in theory, not have to go on a racetrack. You still have a license plate on your car, have it registered, and go that fast. How many cars since then have? I mean, shit. We just posted some about a Koenigsegg going to go 300 apparently.
Yeah.
Like.
Let's see it.
And let's see it. Let's get it out on
Picture
a
didn't
stretch
have
of
it.
road. But anyway, that story and like how the origin of that whole run of cars started with the F40. That's pretty special.
Definitely.
The Miata just being popular in so many different circles, in club racing, in car clubs, in retired hairdressers who want a sporty car, to young up-and-come race car drivers who want a cheap alternative to hone their skills. It's a big story as well.
The tangible impact of the Miata is far greater because it's continuing and it's every day.
Because I think although the F40 asked the question first, can we go 200 miles an hour in a car, and then answered it with yes, I think we would have gotten there eventually.
Definitely. Well, Porsche was right behind
Yeah.
with the 959 anyway. But I mean,
All right.
it's regrettable to say because of my personal like for that 40, but I honestly think this is an easy win.
I agree.
There it is. So my bracket has the Corvette and the Miata moving on to the next
How that
round.
is just that's the Nick bracket. It just
the
is.
round of 8. The round of 8. So
That could be a bloodbath.
I'll just run through the industry bracket then.
Yep,
Do
let's
you
do
want me to do that? So industry bracket: number 1 Mustang, number 4 the lovable underdog Dodge Caravan.
I mean, honestly, we put the Caravan in there, but for me, it's no contest.
That can't be.
Yeah, all
when
right.
you name an entire car class the pony car because of the Mustang,
Yeah.
There it is.
that is what it is, folks.
There it is. So next on the industry bracket is the 3 seed Model T up against its brother within the Ford camp, the mighty Ford F-150.
Yeesh.
Oof.
All right. So,
Remembering the importance of what the Model T did for mobilizing a country here.
And I was looking at this, not just this country.
yeah.
Like the mine, we'll get to that later, it came around and kind of revolutionized cost and availability. But like when the Model T and the Model A were out, you'd see like they were everywhere. You'd see them in Europe, they were in Australia, they were in Asia. Like,
Really?
Yeah, they were sold everywhere. And like, yes, Henry Ford's kind of primary goal was like, mobilizing, country farmers or whatever to do their thing. But that car was nearly ubiquitous during its run.
Yeah. I mean, Model T makes a strong case here.
And also, we talk about its production. Like, talk about, assembly line production. Like, cars existed, but not on this scale.
But damn, the F-150 is like
No.
40 years or more now. It's been the staple of this entire category of vehicle.
Exactly.
Chevy hasn't, Chevy makes a good pickup truck. They haven't been able to touch it. Ram is a good pickup. Hasn't been able, F-150 is still the standard bearer. It hasn't been dethroned for 40 years.
And it also almost has a modern version of the argument that you would use for the Model T. I mean, when you look at how Ford produces those, it's nothing short of deeply impressive. I mean, the
true.
amount of those that they sell a day, whatever it is, it's like one every minute
They
or something.
sell an
weird like that.
F-150 every 11 seconds or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, something faster than a minute. Minute's way too slow. But just to be able to produce that scale here and then have some left over to send around the world, it's almost like the same thing. It's almost like a modern mobilization of the workforce and people who just want to buy a truck for whatever reason. But every year, they do it every year. I don't know.
This is a tough call. This might be the toughest matchup on the bracket.
I mean, we just got to vote, right?
We just got to go.
Well, like I said, we've got time to discuss if we have a hard one. If it's like, nope, it's definitely this, then we can just move on. But
I mean, that's my main argument for the F-150. All the arguments they can make about the Model T, you can definitely make them about the Ford in a modern context, and about the F-150 in a modern context.
right, the question is though, had the Model T not done that, would they have eventually had the wherewithal to do the F-150, or would Ford have not been able to?
Right, but then,
We talk about story and impact and all that. Like, if F-150s, dropped off the face of the planet, you'd probably still have pickup truck. People would just have to buy something else.
See, yeah, that's true.
If people, I'm sure many people would be sad. But if the but if the Model T never came around, if Henry Ford didn't decide to do that, what impact would that have on not just Ford, but the car industry as a whole?
That's a good point. That's really unknowable.
Right.
Because you just don't know who was prepared to do mass production
If at all.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not for another 30 years, right?
That's the thing. Even does VW even get it right in that way without the Model T?
Without having been shown that it can be done.
Yeah. It's almost a question of plausibility without the Model T. Would it even be possible?
Man, you make a really good point there. Argument against the Model T here, though. When I brought up the Model T in last week's episode, describe me one.
Oh, I know.
Like, everybody knows an F-150. Does everybody know? Like, they've heard the name. Can they pick Model Ts out of?
And I think
the proper space at the car museum.
They're not quite as clear to tell as some modern cars. But honestly, if you took the badges off and you were not a car person, would you be able to tell between like an F-150 and a 1500 Silverado?
I think I'm more approaching it from the fact that it's it's ingrained in people's head like an F-150. They get an image of it, and like
And I
with
think
a Model T, you
and I
get
think-
the image, like the old grainy image of the assembly line
Right,
and
I'm
stuff. But
saying,
what the
but, like-
vehicle itself,
And I think they do. I think, and I'm going to pull up something you said. Mm-hmm. Are the people who look at the F-150, are they going to know, are the headlights, do you know? I don't even know. Are the headlights vertical stacked or side stacked? Are they like horizontal? Are they,
I'm trying to remember.
you know,
Yeah.
is there a stripe down the side? Does the hood have a bulge? Like, they're going to be able to look at a pickup. They're going to F-150 and say, oh yeah, that looks like a pickup truck. And but they're not going to be able to give you details of an F-150.
Probably not.
They're also not going to be able to give you details of a Model T. They're gonna say, oh, round headlights in the front, big bicycle looking ass wheels, and there you go.
Looking ass wheels.
Like,
they
you know,
were.
I've been with around you too often. But
just
like,
throwing the word ass in the middle of sentences
Yeah.
or random places.
like I think that you can like if you like walked up to someone and said Model T, they would have a rough outline of what that looks like. Now, would they be able to tell it from a Model A, like my dad? No. You know, would that? So that's not a slam on anybody, but I don't think that or especially if you go back, go back to however long the F-150 has been running and compare it to a Dodge truck of the time. If you didn't have the badges on it, I wouldn't know the difference.
Definitely true, especially when you go back.
Okay, so here's my next litmus test for you guys. If you go up to someone on the street who has already
Surprise them with Model T. I just want to do that.
Who has a somewhat casual knowledge of vehicles, and you ask them, the first thing that comes to mind when I say truck, and then the first thing that comes to mind when I say car, are they more likely to say F-150 for a truck or Model T for a car?
They're probably more likely to say F-150, but that's a time thing.
Yeah.
And we talked about that, being time biased in one of the earlier ones, and how we could have been with the GT40, but that's not why we didn't pick it. I think that when you're looking at what's available right now as far as cars go, there's so many available that I don't know that you'd even get a majority of one car.
Here's another question on the same thing though. If you went up to people and just said Ford, would you get more people saying F-150 or Model T?
I would think F-150.
I don't necessarily know that to be true because everybody
Or
knows
would you
the
get
story.
Mustang?
Well, you would
Right.
get right.
Probably
You
Mustang.
would get Mustang, in my opinion. But
Be
that's
like,
not
okay,
even
so
a
what's
part
your
of this
number two?
discussion yet. But really, I honestly think that more people, because of the story, because of the lineage, would say Model T, and I guess that's how I'm going to sum up that. That's my vote.
Is
Model T.
Model T.
okay.
What did you say? What were you going to say?
I was actually going to say Model T also.
All right. Okay.
He pshes at us like, oh, that was a
I was
tough one. He got outvoted.
Well,
No.
I'm just like, when it comes back around to me, I don't have to even say my vote because it's already.
Yeah.
We'll start with you next time.
Well, this is your bracket now. Now, according to how I wrote this out, this is the Andrew bracket. So,
we go.
Andrew, tee us up. This is the number 1 versus number 4.
This matchup is so tasty. This is why I did the seating this way.
He wanted this conversation right here.
I did. So, 1v4, we have the Jag E-Type versus the American Jag E-Type, the Shelby Cobra. Both are definite trendsetters. Both are instantly recognizable. Both have race pedigrees. Both are speed legends. Both are incredibly lusted after to the point where people buy knockoff kits of the look.
This is so hard.
This one's really, really, really tough.
If there was one, I know we said we couldn't. If there was one that we could, I would abstain from this one.
This is really tough.
So here's where it starts for me. I am leaning towards the E-Type, even though this was a late ad for me, simply because I think all of the knockoffs, the Cobra was so rare in such limited production that all the kit cars have sort of spoiled it. It used to be, one of those things where like, is it real? Is it not? Now when you see something that looks like a Cobra at a car show,
You're like, that's
know
not
it's
real.
fake. You know it's fake. They're just anyone who has a real one, they're not driving that thing to a car show. They're saving it in a hermetically sealed box in their garage.
Yep. 100% agree.
And that
With what they're doing with the Shelby.
yeah, and that's so tough because the Shelby is glorious to behold.
Oh, it is.
And in like when I remember as growing up, that shape, that car was like the universal symbol for cars. For some reason that seemed like the super 90s car, it was like the most desirable one or something. It had like a resurgence then.
Right. So you're leaning E-Type.
Yeah, because the memory of the Shelby's been so diluted.
But I think you just said it. How many years after the original run of the Shelby, there's still poster cars on kids' walls in the 90s, early 2000s. They're still...
What, 40 years?
Yeah. They're still in production runs for like Hot Wheels.
Oh,
or,
yeah,
like all this kind of stuff. You see it more than you see the E-Type. And it might be a geographical thing. Maybe in Europe, European Hot Wheels have way more E-Types than Shelbys. But
I think so. If I had to guess.
I think for what's still sustaining longer, more popular now, I would have to go with the Shelby. And another argument to that is you just remembered it and had to add it in. We didn't even mention it last week.
I did think of it, but yes, it did have to be added back in when I realized that it's actually sort of negligent to do the McLaren F1 and not the E-Type.
I would... Tristan, on the one that you want to abstain, you have the deciding vote.
Yeah, I know.
We've got one E-Type and one Shelby. Plus, I want to see an upset in the bracket. I don't want to just go chalk. We got one. Never mind, Model T. So
we got an upset.
I vote Shelby.
I vote E-Type. You're gonna go E-Type. Just do it.
And here's why.
Damn it.
I think that when you look at the Cobra, there was a certain amount of reverence for the performance and a kind of cool design.
Yes.
What you don't see is this continued adherence to that design being so important that like nobody really does make E-Type kits, because I don't think anybody would dare to. You can knock together a Cobra kit because it wasn't a very complicated design. I think because the E-Type had a body tub, not a ladder frame, and there was bodywork bolted right to the front of that tub. And I think so all this stuff that would, it makes it difficult to be a kit car. And I think that people don't try because they kind of want to leave it alone. And then you see even Jaguar themselves coming back to build like new E-Types from original schematics, or remaking original parts to keep them around, or taking them apart and re-electrifying them. There are companies that do kind of like replicas
or like kits for E-Types, but they're millions.
Yeah,
literally.
It's like you can't put it on a bug chassis,
right?
Like the Cobra kits, you can. Like the Eagle Speedster is an E-Type build-off. Yeah. Like they said, we liked that. We're going to make something that looks like that. And I think it's
800,000, something like that.
The Eagle Speedster is crazy expensive.
Right.
So expensive.
So then think about that for a minute. Is it really a kit car or just another car company making a car that looks like that?
You can put a Shelby kit together for probably about 25, 30.
Yeah. And I think on top of that, there is, I think among car people, there's an appreciation for the Cobra, but I think there is a certain amount of kind of everlasting, dare we say, iconic, cool about the E-Type. You know, and you could roll up to, the Academy Awards and hop out of your E-Type, and there'd be comment on that. I think if you hopped out of your Eagles, it was Cobra. What was it, AC Eagle Cobra, whatever it was, like the weird. Like it wasn't just like the Shelby Cobra. It was
I know
who
what you're
built it,
talking
but there's a
the
name.
AC Cobra.
Yeah. And if you jumped out of that, almost no one would know what it is
I think people
outside
might
of
know.
car people.
I think people might know, but I definitely think that
I think Hollywood was a bad example because I don't know how many car people are in Hollywood. I don't think there's be a lot that know about the E-Type either or the
I
Eagle
think you-
Speedster.
I
I think because of the status of the E-Type, there would be.
yeah, I think you're understating.
I think that actually is. I think the place that you're less likely to get attention in E-Type is something like Road America.
Definitely.
Like you'll get people to come look at it, but more people will ooh and ah over, the roar of the, topless Cobra coming in versus the E-Type kind of muttering its way in with a straight six and, beautiful understated British design is going to draw more eyes in, quote unquote, high society versus the Cobra. And I think that kind of untouchable air of cool is what makes it more iconic.
Agreed.
All right. Well, I lost that one. Scratch one off the list for me.
All right.
So E-Type moves on over the Shelby, despite my best efforts. Next one, Andrew. Your 2 versus 3.
2v3 I think is a funny comparison to make because they're both cars manufactured by the same conglomerate. So in the 2 spot we have the Bugatti Veyron, and in the 3 spot we have the GTI. It seems like a silly comparison, but when we talk about defining segments, the GTI created out of essentially nothing the hot hatchback, and more than that, it certainly revitalized, if not created out of nothing, the idea that if you have cars and you like them, you may have a car that you can like
And drive.
yeah, and it doesn't have to break down, and you can put your kids in the back, and you can get groceries at the same time. That was the GTI, offering something that didn't really exist at the time, and has influenced cars ever since. No matter what you make, if you make a compact car with a nice motor and some niceties in the interior and a good shifter, you're making a GTI competitor, whether or not you want to, whether or not it's even here at the time. That's what you're doing. That's what people are going to compare it to. And of course, then there's the Veyron, the flagship of excess in the car industry.
It started that kind of supra million, 220 plus mile an hour, thing that then you got followed by, the Koenigsegg and
Pagani
and
Ferrari and a
The Ferrari.
Lamborghini, and
Yes.
all of these cars that are the symbols of ultimate automotive engineering and ultimate automotive luxury. So it's kind of the two sides of the coin. Not that the GTI was fighting against anything supercar like that when it was brought out, but that's basically the concept that it's fighting against.
It's the customer bases against one another. It's the ultra excess, high society 1% versus the everyman.
Yeah.
And their play toy.
Symbolic.
It is. It's very symbolic.
And so, for that very reason, my vote goes to the GTI simply because it's for everyone. And what's better than that?
I agree. I vote the GTI in an upset here. I think it's and we talked about this in the last episode, the sustainability of a brand versus, it's the same reason the F40 didn't go through, the GT40 didn't go through in my bracket. It's a single model, very important in its stature and what it represents, and what the trend that it started. But I can go out and get a GTI.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
I can not go out and get a Veyron. And I can probably have just as much fun in my GTI as I can in my Veyron if I were to go get one.
I would think so, honestly.
Yeah, and when we
And
talked
I did drive one, even though I could only do like 20 miles an hour, and it was smoking. It was limping at home.
I had nothing to do with that.
I did drive one, and I enjoyed it. So
I think when you talk about defining a segment, Okay, great. They both did. But you talk about a segment, and you can talk about a segment.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
Like when you look at like
Hypercar.
yeah, which is like we were struggling to list 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Versus you've got the GTI, the Veloster N, you've got the i30N, same basic car, but still marketing. You've got the various Peugeot, Citroen DS.
Renault makes one.
Renault
Yeah.
Pagan.
Honda
Yep.
makes one.
Ford.
makes one.
Yeah, like you've got they're
Chevy
all
tried, didn't really do it.
Chevy has tried.
Yep, they're
Not
all and they're all fighting against each other to be the GTI killer.
Yep. Opel
Yeah.
makes one. Seat makes one.
Yeah.
Skoda makes one.
I
Audi makes
skipped,
one.
I skipped some of those because that's all within Volkswagen Group.
But still, everybody wants one. And if you have one, when you build one, when you build your Civic Si, you're still fighting against the GTI. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Cars can have 60 more horsepower and still be compared to the GTI because it's just that's what you look to for comparison, and I think that means iconic.
100%.
GTI upsets the mighty Veyron.
I'm happy about that. I feel good about that.
That makes me feel warm inside.
All right. So now we get into Tristan's bracket, the last 2 matchups of round 1. Tristan, tee up the 1v4 matchup
All
for
right.
us.
In the first bracket, 1v4, we have the Porsche 911 and the WRX.
Yeesh.
Ooh.
I don't want the 911 to win so bad.
All right, then start the discussion. Change my mind.
Subjectively, I don't want the 911 to win. But if we're being objective here, this is going to be really, really, really hard to argue against.
So hard. Here's what I'll say. And every argument that I could ever possibly make about the WRX can also be made about the 911. But here's what I'm going to say.
But here's my thing.
Here's what I'm going to say. When you look at a car with a unique, this is awful.
He's dying a little. I can see it.
Because genuinely, here's what I want to say. I want to say the WRX should win because it's a complete unique vehicle layout that outlasted all competitors, does well on the racetracks every single year, and is a genuine pioneer. All of that is also true about the 911, even more so.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that things you can say about it, other than perhaps it stands kind of alone in its segment, like...
Who's putting their engines in the rear?
Well, I'm not saying, but from design standpoints, but not actual performance numbers.
True.
Yeah, you can actually, it's hard, as you discussed in your blog post, it's hard to find anything that is exactly a WRX for price and power and everything else.
Yeah.
There are lots of things that can and do go numerically toe-to-toe with the 911. But I think that's not over... That doesn't happen for nearly any significant portion of its lifespan.
True.
The 911 has seen them all and outlasted every single one of them.
Damn it.
I guess my argument against the 911 and for WRX would be
He has one.
is that the 911 is they branched it off into so many different things. There's so many different numbers out there. There's so many different variations where the WRX, I mean, you can have the STI, but is the WRX.
Well, now, just in the past 2 years, they've started doing country-specific models for every country they sell in.
And even before that, it was the part of the Impreza line. It was the Impreza, Impreza WRX, Impreza Sport, Impreza WRX, Impreza WRX STI. Just keep throwing letters on the end of it.
Here's the next question or argument. How many people are in Porsche's category trying to bring it down? How many 911 killers are out there?
Let's see. Audi makes one. I think we can. Can we make an argument that Ferrari makes one? Are you saying that?
Maybe not for-
Lamborghini, definitely.
Yep.
Definitely.
Acura.
Yep.
What else here?
Would you put price point wise? Would you put a Corvette in there?
I think you kind of have to with the ZR1.
Yep.
Right. Do we say Shelby Mustang or GT500?
But here's okay.
GT350.
So
GT350. GT350.
there you go. So now here's my point. What's out there competing against the WRX?
The Veloster N and the Honda Civic Type R.
Do they really even compete, though?
Yeah. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
well, the N isn't out enough here to really know yet. But I think
That's the shot, though. That's the shot they took.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's definitely the people who take shots at me.
yeah.
Guys in Type Rs.
100%. And, I think the complicating factor is with the GTI just winning in the last bracket, does the WRX really have what it takes to pull that kind of upset over a car that is equally its competitor in the same way? You know what I mean? We're talking about scale, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't want the 911 to win because I'm super bored of it, but I don't see a way around it. I feel like I have to vote 911.
Yeah, I think when we look at number of cars that are out there racing, and it's like right after the Miata, it's 911s, and then on top of it, you've got just whether or not you're a fan of it, a clear, striking, definitive design. So much so that Porsche won't change it.
They can't.
I mean, that's why I'm kind of bored of it. But it's so iconic, Porsche won't touch it.
Yeah.
And
they're one of the few cars that make a Targa, and loves the Targa.
we love us a Targa.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the most subdued victory ever, but
This
yeah.
might be Duke right now.
Yeah.
The 911 might be Duke right now.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want them, but you just know.
Maybe North Carolina.
I love North Carolina.
Oh, that's right.
He's a North Carolina fan.
Fine, it's Duke then.
It's Duke. Okay, so the 911 moves on. Tristan, your 2-3 matchup is
The Quattro and the Beetle.
Quattro 3, Beetle 2.
Exactly.
I feel like this is an easy one. I think it's Beetle. I think it's walk-off for Beetle.
Yep.
I agree.
All right.
Yep. That was, we agreed on the last one, but there was a lot of discussion to be had. I think when you talk about iconic, I think a lot when you throw up all the comparisons that we've made or all the requirements we've had for other vehicles so far. Like if you rolled a Quattro in front of somebody, I bet 90% of people are going to like, what the hell is that?
Why does it look that way?
I mean, I know what it is because it's me, and I think anybody who has an interest in Rally or Audi, respectively, will know what that is. And it is specifically, kind of like even when we were talking about Duesenberg, it's an American icon brand for Duesenberg. It's a rally icon, and
Yes.
and the drivetrain had a lot of impact on where Audi went from there. But from being everything from the car unfortunately driven by Germany during a certain time period to being the car of the Flower Children to being the car you rent in Cozumel that they've chopped the top off of it.
Yep.
To it's like the Beetle is everywhere,
Oh yeah.
and that's why I chose it.
Plus 911 versus Beetle is a hot match.
It is. It's what the fans want to see.
Stop hitting yourself is what it is. I mean, it's
Oof.
Yeah, so Beetle moves on.
Yeah.
We have made it through round 1. We are to the round of 8. Do I want to go through the matchups or just start right away with one at a time?
Just hit it.
Let's just hit it. So the first matchup in the round of 8, back up to Nick's bracket, is the 1 versus the 2, the Corvette versus the Miata. I feel like Andrew doesn't want to pick the Corvette just because he wants to poke at me.
I mean, that's definitely a driving factor. Here's what I don't want actually with the Corvette. It has nothing to do with you. I'm going to go back to one of the questions I originally posed about specifically the Corvette last episode. When we look across the entire line of Miatas, there are some that are more up, some are more down. However, the entire line has impact. When we look at Corvette, C1, whatever, C2 was what? I don't even know. C3 split window, boom, we're going. We're going like a shot.
No, C2 was the split window.
Oh, C2 is a C? I don't even know. Why would I know?
why would I know?
C2 is a split window. There we go. We're off. C3, what's the C3?
It's the one that my dad has currently, the Stingray.
Stingray. Okay. So those two look similar. And C2, C3 look similar?
Pretty close. The C3 has much more flared fenders. It's got that more curvature on it.
You already know. See, I don't know. I feel like there's ambiguity in Corvette that there isn't in Miata. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, I think when you talk about Corvette, there's a lot of like, well, this one and this one, not that one, but this one, and I think there's a lot of hemming and hawing about which ones are iconic.
Just in the generations before we even get to models, like Z06, ZR1, which I think is all fine. I think including, like the C7 as one model, I think we can say it's great, right? Even though you and I don't
Whether
particularly
you
care for the car
for it or not.
It's got race wins. It's
Yeah.
got
Oh yeah.
pedigree.
100%.
Same for the C6. That's
True.
my favorite personally.
C6.
C7. I mean, they've all got pedigree. The C4 was probably the worst one of them all. I would say, like the mid '80s.
That was dark.
That was
C3 was not great though either.
C3 was pretty good.
That was the all fiberglass one with no trunk, right?
C3.
C3. Or was that the C4? No, it was a C4.
C4.
That was C4.
Yeah, C4, and it was the big push for autos.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just
or more
wrong
of
about
them. I
stuff
think were
today.
sold with an automatic than a manual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the one that. Yeah. Dreer.
Yeah.
Man, that I think is so. Really, what we have to consider is longevity and genuinely American icon status versus a strong, continuous line of international appeal that is so integrated into motorsports. I think it's more integrated in motorsports than Corvette in the Miata.
Well, I think more of them are raced, but that's because Corvette only races their factory team. There's no customers out there. They don't sell them in a customer basis.
Right, but even in the race that we went to, the support race at Xfinity at Road America last year.
Yeah. Oh, the Trans Am bodies.
Trans Am. Yeah, I mean, there are other Corvettes, but it's just still, there are also Miatas.
Yeah, I think that if you go to any race weekend that has sports cars, you can guarantee yourself an on-track Miata sighting.
And any race weekend at all, you're going to see Mad Miatas
Yeah.
in the parking lot.
Yes.
They're going to be everywhere.
Now, that is racing only. Now, we were talking about motorsport icons or not. If we're talking about auto industry icons, that's where I would pitch. I still haven't decided yet, but given that, that's where I would pitch.
I mean, you're
the
basically the
Corvette.
tiebreaker vote. We know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's where I would pitch the Corvette. It is something that is a staple of the American auto industry and has been for a long time. And I think even if you subtract out all the misses that Corvette had, I still think they have greater longevity and more not autosport. I think if we were looking at motorsport in particular, I'd have to go with the Miata. But I think if we're looking at iconic cars, I think I got to go with the Corvette.
All right. There we go.
All right. Whew. Survives. No, like, honestly, that was... Everyone knows my story with GM and Corvette, but... Like, my stomach hurts right now. Like, I was thinking really, really hard on this. Like, Miata, there's such a strong case for Miata. Like, it is not a sexy... It's not like really a sexy thing,
No.
but... Damn.
It's tough. That's a hard one.
It's really
that
tough.
That was gut wrenching.
Literally, my stomach hurts right now. It might have been that sandwich earlier. But next one, we have the industry bracket. And this is going to another intra-Ford battle. This is the Mustang at the 1 seed versus the 3 seed Model T.
My vote's Mustang. As much as I abhor the religious element to Mustang fandom, it's worse than Corvette, and it's not close. It's just not.
Yeah, bullet, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, yes, production, story, blah, 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 blah. Again, just like we said during the Model T thing, if you go up to someone and say Ford, they're almost certainly going to
say Mustang.
Done.
Agreed?
Mustang.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yep.
All right, moving on.
God,
Mustang.
Mustang.
Again, like we can always. Oh no. So we can always talk about like what's important from a historical standpoint, but we're not. An icon doesn't necessarily mean that.
True.
The best ancestor is not what we're talking about here.
True story.
So
All right. So, Andrew, now we're to your bracket. we have the 1 seed E-Type and the 3 seed GTI.
Crap.
Crap.
So, is Hollywood storied lineage enough to beat the People's Fun Car? I hope not. I really hope not. There's that advertising push coming from VW. Even at the very start, the first commercial for the GTI was the guy in the tux walking out of the casino
Yes.
after losing all his money. Even today, there is a bit of that. If you pull up to your corporate job, to your janitorial job, to your factory job, anywhere in the world in a GTI, no one's hating on that. You know what I mean?
There's 3 or 4 in our parking lot on a daily basis, and I'm
guaranteed.
and I'm always looking back as I go past.
and I don't know if it's out of, insecurity or whatever, but all the WRXs are parking together now.
They got to stick together, strength in numbers.
See you people. And then, just like Tristan explained, I thought he did a really good job actually at the end of the E-Type, the last E-Type segment. There is so much power in that and unapproachability. So which is truly more iconic? Is it the pedestal or is it what you see every day?
The accessibility.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess if we throw it all the way back to your, where did the word icon come from? Mm-hmm. It's some dude up on a cross. I mean...
That's true. In the truest sense of the word, it has to be E-Type. But I want to vote for the GTI so bad.
Me too.
So bad.
Well, I mean, so let's remember the one thing that we said is going to win. This is the defining factor in this is the narrative. It's the story. I mean, these are only going to get tougher as we go. So this is what we always have to come back
This is
to
what we
compare.
signed up for.
And it's like the objective here is what we found was the narrative is the piece that sells us. So narrative on an E-Type versus narrative on a GTI.
So narrative of the E-Type, testing it on the empty motorways of Britain at night because it was so fast and they couldn't do it at any other time. Narrative of the GTI, well, everything about it's iconic. The pattern on the seats, the golf ball shape of the shifter, all of that stuff is continued today and imitated.
Founding a category from nothing.
As if from thin air.
And again, it's just like the last one. It's for some reason it's almost the exact same matchup. The car that's so powerful in terms of its wealth association versus the GTI. I mean, really, before the Veyron, is it fair to say that the E-Type had that status in some ways?
Yes, turned down a little bit, but yes.
Because, obviously 250 wasn't possible. But, man.
So I'm torn. I feel like the GTI obviously has the E-Type is there in memory and in the one that you might see rolling across an auction block. Mm-hmm. So it's there kind of superficially. The GTI is tangible, so the staying power is there. Mm-hmm. I think the narrative is there.
Definitely.
But when damn it.
Yeah.
The iconic, if you look at the word, like the pedestal that you have to hold it up on.
I told you.
Oh.
Although I think when we talk
E-Type.
about... Yeah.
Shit, who's first?
E-Type.
GTI.
Oh, you son of
It's your bracket.
Do you even believe that pick, or do you just want to throw that
I
back
do.
in?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I think because we talk about the Icon being a perfect exemplar of a class, and I think the GTI is that.
I do too. It feels so... yeah, I'm just going to go GTI. It feels a little disingenuous.
Honestly, I'm disappointed that I'm not agreeing with you guys as much, that I'm losing out on these, but I'm happy to see the GTI win. I'm not that mad at this.
You're not all torn up about the E-Type too much.
Lastly, Tristan, for this round, we have your bracket, the 911
The Beetle
versus
and the
Beetle.
other Beetle.
Wow. So, I mean, that is the running gag about the 911, as if it's supposed to somehow be insulting. Maybe it's because people who own Porsches are insulted by the fact that they might be associated with the Beetle, but they do share a common ancestor.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, which is more powerful? that's kind of where we're at now. Like the Beetle in its mobilization of literally the entire world, or the 911, which has the the iconic race history and the.
That might be the first thing that comes to mind when you come up to someone and say sports car. 911 might be.
I definitely think so.
Might be the first thing that you think of. So much silence, so much long pauses on this episode. We have to
I just
think.
want to say that.
Don't worry, modern podcast players skip that now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have the option to like trim silence.
Oh, nice.
So that's why we can just sit here as long as we want.
I just want to say I want to get ahead of any possible arguments that I'm being unfair to the 911. I'm not looking at it as the Beetle being the progenitor versus its son in the 911. I definitely see them as two distinct cars, though they do share a common ancestor. What does that really matter? But I do still think that it is the Beetle simply because of the pure international impact. I saw them in Cuba. You see like no cars in Cuba
From
but they have
after
Beetles.
like there's after a certain time.
Yeah, they have Beetles and they have Ladas and they have
God.
Chinese cars and they have those old American cars that they show in all the tourist ads in America because Americans are cowards about Soviet imagery. But really, there's Beetles and there's Russian cars. That's the majority.
Yep. Ah, man. If you throw international appeal out there, the 911 is got a ton of international appeal.
That's
also
true.
like that made its way around the world real quick.
Oh yeah.
Man, the importance of the Beetle though.
That's really hard to overcome.
So let's spin it this way. How would car culture be different if there was no Beetle versus if there was no 911?
I think that it's fair to say that at some point, absent the Beetle, some company would have come up with a way to produce a car that filled that shape. You know what I mean? But the fact that it was something so far different than what a mainstream car ended up being, with the rear engine, with the air cooled. You know what I mean? Like that car succeeded despite
itself.
it did, and with a notorious breakdown history. Everybody still bought them. Everyone in the whole world still bought them, and they kept them running with shoestrings and like bits of can.
Yep.
Even here in America, even when they were new, like despite itself, that car is still popular.
People still seek them out and buy them.
Lust after them, even.
I want one.
It's kind of diseased, but that's the absolute truth. That's my vote for sure.
Rumpf. It's my bracket. I'm ready to take the tiebreaker.
He's ready to do it.
So
Sort of
whenever
fall on the sword,
I'll let him go
it's
first.
even necessary.
This is so hard. This one is so hard.
If you have a vote, Tristan, just go for it then.
Just vote. I got to think. And maybe I won't have to think. If you're ready,
I do know.
go for it.
It's the Beetle.
Did we save you from yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like confrontation. All right.
Wow.
So we've got 2 American muscle cars and 2 sprightly little German cars.
2 slightly Volkswagens.
2, yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so we've got,
Ooh.
I can't say what the basketball tournament calls it because that's trademarked, but we're down to our last 4.
Remaining quadrant.
In one side, we have the Corvette and the Mustang, and the other side is the GTI and the Beetle.
Yikes.
So,
Where are we at for time, just out of curiosity?
1:15.
we got to hustle, but
Well, I was gonna say we could even episode break it. We could really annoy people and episode break this and release it later in the week with the final 2. Or we could be merciful.
I'm feeling like a merciful God today.
Fine.
yeah, let's
feeling merciful.
let's roll through this. So, last 4,
Oh, you got so close.
matchup number 1, Corvette, Mustang, All America,
Yeesh. Is there
American muscle.
is there a proper Corvette counter-argument to the Mustang-pony car relationship?
The fact that the Mustang was created to compete with the Corvette.
Okay.
So the Mustang was built to compete with the Corvette and then stole the segment name.
That is true.
And, well,
Is it
actually-
pony car because of Mustang or is it pony car because of horsepower?
I actually don't know.
I believe it's because of the Mustang.
I have no idea. I just
I
assumed
don't
it was.
know where this. And that's a question. Like, and I'm also trying to save myself here because
Well,
that's a
here's-
really good argument. But
Well, here's the other thing. Was it because, remember, the Camaro came out as the competitor to the Mustang, not the Corvette necessarily.
I don't think that.
Yes.
Yes, to
It was created because of the Mustang. And other things, however, when you look at the rest
But
of
do
the,
they call other cars in that category pony cars, or is that just a slang term for a Mustang?
Yes.
No, Corvette.
Yes,
Not Corvette.
it was
Camaros
the-
are definitely called pony cars.
I think they're muscle cars. When you're looking at the Mustang, it's the Mustang. It's the big thing is compact. So
I definitely have heard the Camaro in that discussion.
I guess
I'm wrong.
it's in the second portion where it says the segment expands.
Oh.
Initially, it was the Mustang, the Plymouth Barracuda. It went on sale 2 weeks before the Mustang, and the Mustang still took the name.
Yeah.
Basically, it was criticized for having insufficient distinction from the Valiant, so the Valiant could also be thrown in there too.
Sure.
But then segment expands to include the Chevy Camaro and the AMC Javelin.
Oh.
Okay, that's actually a nice little round category there.
Dodge Challenger.
The old one, not the new one, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm just looking at what else is in here. Yeah, Javelin, Mustang, Challenger. Basically things that were initially released with small blocks.
Right, and that's all kind of window dressing. So, yes, even if we take as read that the Mustang was launched to fight the Camaro, it then zigged or perhaps zagged in such a way that Chevy had to respond to the way it moved.
Yeah, they had to come up with something that wasn't the Corvette to fight that segment.
I mean, we already know, the bummer is I think we already know what Nick's vote is.
I'm just trying, besides just my deeply ingrained passion for the brand, I'm trying to come up with a better argument. I'm trying to be, I really am trying to be as objective as possible on this. Like,
I mean, when you look at cultural impact in terms of car culture and just American culture, I think we definitely know that the Mustang comes out ahead in terms of fanaticism. Like the way people treat that car, it just in movies and when it comes to all that stuff I posted about.
do you see, I don't remember seeing, like, going to racetracks, a Mustang corral. There's Corvette corrals everywhere.
That's true. I think there may have been one at Watkins. Weirdly.
Maybe.
But is that not more a question of socioeconomic standing? And is that not more an indictment of the fact that people with money tend to buy the Corvette, whereas people who just want a rear-wheel drive powerful car buy a Mustang? And I'm only asking that because when you look at the other corrals, it's Audi and it's Porsche. And
There's a BMW.
And there's BMW, and maybe Mazda does a little trailer inside the infield.
Mazda does one. I think Mini has done one. Depending on where we go.
But consistently,
Mid-Ohio had a Mustang one. Sorry, now that I'm thinking, they're there. They are there.
consistently year after year, though, you've got Corvette, Porsche, BMW, even Audi's not every year,
Right.
especially when they're not racing their prototypes. So
Plus, even if it is an indication of socioeconomic sales appeal, I have no idea what that means in terms of the impact of the iconic nature of the car or not.
Well, you had just mentioned the fanaticism for the Mustang being greater than the Corvette. I think if we're talking about being a fanatic, showing it publicly would be one of the criteria, and it seems like Corvette people do that more.
What? No. I mean, think about that. Think about all of the jokes about people crashing their Mustangs, showing off, going out of Cars and Coffee.
Okay.
I'm just saying, people not only do people want to show their Mustang at Cars and Coffee, they want to show off afterwards Cars and Coffee to the degree that they're killing bystanders, which is actually horrible to laugh about, but still.
Yeah.
I think that I have to vote for the Mustang simply because I feel that the reach for the Corvette is somewhat limited when you compare it to the obvious reach of the Mustang. I mean,
Yeah, and I agree with that because you look at, like, even in the middle of winter, people whose daily is a Mustang. Even if it's the EcoBoost 4-cylinder or the EcoBoost 6-cylinder, it's not maybe the big 5.0.
they're mostly the Fox
Yeah.
bodies and like the 90s Mustangs that you see driving around the
So
winter.
even the newer, like the first revision of like the new style Mustang,
Yeah.
where they're a little bit more upright. Those are, so you see them all year, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Corvettes are kind of reserved to be, good weather weekend cars.
I don't even
They're
see
not
C5s
daily.
driving around as dailies. And those
Yeah.
are, I think, getting pretty cheap now.
I think you can get those pretty good price for one of those.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think when you talk about strictly, it's the same argument we're going to have every time. I think we're talking about strictly impact versus untouchable icon status.
And even though there is a, more touchable element to the Corvette,
Versus an E-Type or a Veyron.
oh, definitely.
Right.
Definitely. I mean, people get those all the time. I really do think that the Mustang has a broader reach, even across oceans.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw one Corvette in Japan that was hidden, tucked away in a garage.
Wow, they fit that down those narrow streets.
Yeah. And I saw 4 Mustangs in a parking lot parked next to each other. And it wasn't a dealer. I mean, I think, I don't know, I've this is the hardest one for me so far.
This one's
honestly.
tough. They each have exactly matching arguments, and because you can say that the Mustang name sort of supersedes the Ford brand in a lot of ways, and I think Corvette does exactly the same thing. You think
I
of
think
it
it should
even
be
as
its
a
own
Corvette,
brand, yeah.
instead of a Chevy Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even though you get the bow tie on on the stands or above the windshield, they do have their own logo.
On the hood.
Yeah, they do all their own. They do all their own stuff, and even the Mustang has that, the red, white, and blue 3-stripe with the pony. They do the same things. Yeah. For the everyman appeal, Mustang.
Yeah, I think the Mustang takes what the Corvette tried to do and is still doing it versus being, I think, priced out for a lot of people. So I think trying to be that affordable American muscle, I think the Mustang does it better at this point.
Agreed.
I think it's more consistent across its run with some minor exceptions. Much like the C4, we don't talk about the Mustang 2.
That's a good point.
Things like that. So there are some dead years, but I think that's true for both of them.
Cuts me deep, guys.
Yeah, we know. You'll never recover.
See, he doesn't care though. I do care. I feel bad, but I still had to put my vote down.
I need new co-hosts. Or we need a fourth one that we at least get a tie.
If you would like to work on the Check Engine podcast,
Podcast instead of
email.
Andrew and Tristan. I'm better than Andrew and Tristan.
Send an email to I can vote better than Andrew or Tristan at checkenginepodcast.com.
So reluctantly, the Mustang moves to the finals.
I do not want that to win.
Well,
excellent.
You have that. You have that choice. You have that choice because the next semifinal is the GTI versus the Beetle.
I don't want the Beetle to win either. But there's just no comparison, really, when it comes to mobilization. When it comes to I feel like you take a picture of a GTI and show it to someone who's not an American, someone who lives in a third world or developing nation, they're going to know the Beetle. They may even know the Mustang. They're not going to know the GTI.
They might mistake it for a Golf.
Well, yeah, fair enough. Man. Honestly, is there any argument in this matchup for the GTI? Is there any at all?
I don't think in this matchup, no.
Well, if we go back to the narrative,
Doesn't matter.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like if that's what we're arguing, damn.
by any notion, even the ones that we don't want to talk about, like, oh, well, where would Volkswagen be without the Beetle? Would they have even been able to make... We don't even want to talk about that, but you can still include that, and it matters.
Yeah.
There'd probably be no GTI if it wasn't for the Beetle.
Yeah.
All right, Beetle wins.
All right,
Let's get out of here.
Beetle Mustang.
Ugh.
Black.
I gotta say that's not a final I saw coming.
No.
I thought I'd be able to talk myself out of one of the two.
Not quite a Cinderella story, but a bunch of busted brackets.
Yeah.
So, the finals.
So
the
wait.
most iconic car of all time. Will it be the Mustang or the Mustang, the 1 seed out of the industry bracket,
There we go.
or the Beetle, a 2 seed out of Tristan's bracket? Tristan, by the way, congratulations for having the last car standing out of the 3 of us.
That's right. We're both losers.
More James May references.
Man. It's kind of a bummer final. But
That is.
Yeah.
This is like Patriots Falcons.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
That actually turned out to be a good
Yeah,
game,
it was
though.
a good game.
Whatever this last one was, though.
Patriots Ram. Blech.
Anyway,
I don't want to see that one either. That's
we're
what
already
makes
running
this-
long. Let's get off of football and let's narrow this thing down.
Ooh, boy. Where to begin? Obviously, we've made so many arguments for each of these throughout the course of the bracket already. So,
Well, okay, so we know the narratives of each one. We know the story behind each one. We know the impact of each one. Stack them head to head. Better narrative, Mustang or Beetle. Better story, Mustang or Beetle.
more iconic.
Better impact, Mustang or Beetle.
Which is the true automotive icon? Internationally, if we consider the whole world, I think there's one very clear answer of the Beetle. And when we come back to the US, I really do think that it's so powerful. The narrative behind the Mustang is so powerful. I think that is the more iconic car in this country.
And I think there are periods and locations that the Beetle even supersedes that,
Definitely.
but not for as long.
And not over, over its history. They still make the Beetle. Well, they've just stopped, but
Yeah.
they still make the Beetle too, and that changed. And what we never even considered the new Beetle up until now. We just never did
Right.
because we didn't have to. Does that change anything about the Beetle? The fact that the new one almost, when that came out, we were in grade school, right? When the new Beetle came out, that was also a poster car. That was also like a resurgence of maybe not even the entire VW brand, but
I would almost say the VW brand.
really.
Yeah, because I think that was the time when the GTIs were at their humblest and the Jettas were kind of and all the cars that people were looking to Volkswagen for were in their 90s, early 2000s slump.
Right.
And then the Beetle comes blowing in with colored wheels and a Bud vase,
Yeah, and the bright yellow and the bright
orange,
green
blue.
and- oh yeah,
My sister had the bright yellow one.
That's right.
It was the most cheerful car.
My cousin has a bright yellow one. Just daily.
Get them in touch with my sister. Because
she wants that car
She
back.
just wants to see it one more time,
Oh God,
I can have him take a picture of it.
right?
that was really depressing. I know.
Sorry, I ruined it.
Shit.
The Beetle got this far without us ever considering an entire generation of itself.
It was
Honestly, it was kind of a cakewalk for the Beetle to get this
It
far.
really was.
I think it's met its first real challenger in the Mustang, but I'm voting Beetle right now.
Ah. Man, that would be a depressing winner. Nick,
I know my
Once.
vote. I want to be the tiebreak if there is one, if needed.
I'm going to vote Beetle too.
So no need for the tiebreaker.
No need for the tiebreak.
Nick,
It would have been unanimous.
Let's say I am going to call though, Nick.
Full sweep.
It would. Wow. It is kind of a bummer, but when you think about it, the justification, it fits.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It fits.
Yeah,
It made it up against pretty much every challenger without ever talking about the entire line of the car. Plus the fact that you still see them now. While it may be more underground or understated, the fanatical devotion to that car I mean, we talk about it mobilizing. Another thing we never talked about in this whole bracket, it created the dune buggy.
Yeah,
That also too.
Just holy. That's dirt racing and that's Bajas, and that's its own thing.
We talked about it in relation to the Cobra.
Oh my god, that's right.
All those Cobra the things that made the Cobra able to be iconic were Volkswagen Beetles.
Yes, of course.
Oh man. And by the way, folks, we did not have this predetermined. Like,
Nope.
we voted on this live, so
Yeah, so apologies if the content.
yeah.
Or if you're disappointed in the result, deal with
Hey,
it.
I'm
give
a
us
little-
other. That's where you guys come in. Give us other arguments. What did we miss? What did we? I mean, it's not going to change our vote, but let's get the discussion going. Start it with one another. Start it with us on our socials, on the website. Email us. Do whatever you got to make a case for one of the cars that we dropped off the bracket here. Mm-hmm. Maybe do we seed them wrong?
Oh, hey, there you
That
go.
could be another argument. Like, hey, if you would have put the Beetle up against this one, it would have never made it out of the second round. Like, that might be something too. So let us know what you think. But Volkswagen Beetle
The Check Engine
podcast,
most
iconic car ever.
of all time.
Not sexy one bit.
Nah, not even a little.
but
Nope.
happy.
But happy, but very content.
Yes.
And with that, it's time to wrap up, guys. Who or what are we thanking?
I mean, I feel like I do this a lot, but I'm still going to thank the listeners. I mean, to hear from someone who passionately is involved with what we do enough to write an email or a Facebook message or whatever it was, that really means a lot. That's really important.
Even if we disagree with you.
Which is
can
fine.
happen.
That's why we have this podcast. If we all just agreed about something all the time, we'd have 20 minutes of going, yep, and we'd be done.
Yeah.
It's all about the discussion, the dissent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
So yeah, thanks to the fans, the listeners.
Tristan?
I would like to thank Volkswagen Group and its relatives and children and cousins, because looking at this list, how many of them are on there, it's pretty good.
Them, but Ford crushed it.
Ford did also, but we've got
Also didn't
One,
make cars
two,
anymore.
three. We've got Model T, F-150, Mustang, GT40.
and we've got 911 Beetle, GTI, Veyron.
4 and
So
4.
4, 4, and 4. So half of this list was either Volkswagen or Ford.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Hey, well, I mean, when you talk about car companies, almost like, sadly, Ford has gone astray. When it's like
Take a hack it out, that'd be all right.
like literally, it's like Ford is the American car company for a lot of people. That's what you talk about in history books in class. And Volkswagen literally means the people's car.
Yep.
Like they are two of the most storied manufacturers. It's not a surprise that 8 of the cars on this list are from those two manufacturers.
Yeah.
So
Very
thank
true.
you, Volkswagen, and thank you, Ford, unless you were going to do that.
I wasn't. I was going to go a little bit lighter than, you guys go really deep on these sometimes. I want to thank pens and ink because without that, I would have never been able to remember what all advanced. So the fact that I was able to,
You could use pencil.
Blood.
or
Yeah.
blood,
Or
I had a
water.
pen in my hand at the time. Water?
Yeah. It's ineffective.
Get off me.
But you can do it.
Thanks to pens for allowing me to keep track of what's going on and help me determine a winner here in real time. Thank you also, as Andrew already mentioned, to all the listeners. We are 1 year in with almost 150 average listens already, over 6,000 total. We cannot do it without you. Even if we suck, you guys are awesome, and we cannot wait to talk to you again. Take care.
Bye.